Hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel and welcome to another reading vlog where I'm gonna be reading A Little Hatred. So A Little Hatred is book, I think 8 in the First Law Worlds, and it's the first in the Age of Madness trilogy, which is like the last trilogy inside this world. And this is fantasy, and I have like loved all the previous books that have come before this one. And so we had like an initial trilogy, then we had 3 standalones, and then we had like one short story collection. And I have like videos for all of those books that come before this one, like posted. So if you want to check those out before getting into this one, I will be linking the playlist somewhere and also like the videos in the description. And yeah, so this is set almost 30 years after the end of the first trilogy, and we are following like some familiar characters, but definitely mostly new characters. But you know, the world is the same, just changed like 30 years. And yeah, I was very excited to get into this because, like I said, I have loved all the other books that have come before, and I love this world and I love the characters. And yeah, I was very, very excited to get into this. And I just want to say that there are definitely spoilers for everything that happens in this book, in this video. And having said that, let's just get into the video. Okay, so I have read part 1 of A Little Hatred, which is actually about a third, or really like a third. And I'm on page 178? No, 158. So yeah, I'm here. And so this is set 28, I think. If it's not 28, it's something close to that. Years after the first trilogy, and like after the end of the first trilogy. And this is set like in the industrial era of this world, where like machines are starting to be invented and used, and like factories, and that is causing some issues, definitely, because like jobs are being replaced by machines and people are not happy. And also we are following the like children of some of the characters from both the initial trilogy and also some of these standalones, and they basically want to be like heroes like their parents were, or like the other people that they hear about. And that's also causing some trouble. And we are following, I think, like 7 POVs, if I am not forgetting someone. I think 7, but I'm gonna divide them into like 3 sections that I think are like the most, like the ones that have the most in common. And so we can start with Reek. Actually, I have no idea how to say her name, but she is the dogman's daughter, and she seems to have the long eye, which is basically like she has visions. And she basically says that like there has been peace in the North her whole life, which is definitely not what we know about the North, you know, from the past, but there has been peace. And now, not really anymore, because like in one of her visions, she sees her home, like her town, the place where she grew up, burning. And then when she gets there, it is actually burning. And it is burning because Stour Nightfall, I think that's his name, who is Black Calder's son, he wants to take the Union away from the North. So like, yes, after all of these years, they're still fighting about the same things, which, you know, feels very accurate to real life, to be honest. And yeah, there's that fight happening. He wants to send the Union away. And then we follow Clover, and he used to be a fighter, and he is working for Black Calder, and he's like teaching young boys how to fight, until Black Calder calls him for a task. And the task is basically to get his son on the right path, because Black Calder also doesn't want his son to do what he's doing. So he sends Clover his way, and when he gets there, his like Stour wants to find Reich. Again, I don't know if that's how you say her name, and basically hurt her. And Clover doesn't think that would be wise, or it doesn't want to do it. And then we see her, like, she's on the run, like Reich, and the woman that she's with, whose name I don't remember. I think it starts with an I, but I don't really remember her name. But they're like on the run trying to get to Dogman and like his people. And then in the same area, we're also following Leo, who is like, his nickname is the Young Lion, and he is Denbrock's son, and he and his people have won like a very small victory against the Northmen, but it wasn't really like thought out, and the consequences of that might actually be bad. And like, his mom is pretty pissed about that whole situation, and he just wants to be a hero. Like, he wants victories and he wants to be admired. And Reich actually, I mean, she's found by Shivers, who I did not expect to see again, but he's here again. She's found by Shivers, and she's like being taken back to her dad. But she first goes through where Leo is, and I think that's what we got with them. And then moving on to our next group of characters, who now are only two. So we have Broad, and he has just come back home, and he was some time away like fighting in Styria, and he is back home, and he realizes that while he was gone, like, his wife had to basically sell like their farm animals, and like some of their land had to be like, was taken away, and they can't really stay there anymore, so he needs to go find a job. And he also learns about the Breakers, who are these groups of workers who want to like rebel and basically like sabotage the factories, because they are not really getting paid enough. They don't have like conditions, they are just being fired, and yeah, they want basically better living conditions. And then we hear about Vic, and she seems to be part of the Breakers. And we learn that her father used to be master of the Royal Mint, but he was like accused and found guilty, although she says that he was actually innocent of what he was accused of. And they were sent to the camps in the north, and that's like where she grew up and like lost her whole family. And they are like, the Breakers are like doing their thing, but then they are caught and they are taken, and like she specifically is taken to Glokta. And we actually learned that she basically infiltrated the Breakers to sort of like kind of destroy them from the inside, and she's actually working for Glokta. And then the other two characters that we are following are Orso and Savine. And so Savine is actually Glokta's daughter, like adoptive daughter, I guess. She's not his biological daughter, which is something that I'm going to get to, because that is definitely part of an issue here. And so she is like an icon. Honestly, I'm kind of in love with her, and she is kind of a lot like her dad in some ways, because like the way she's introduced, like she's making a deal with someone and like blackmailing them and like threatening them, and I thought that was very iconic from the beginning. And then we see that Yoru, I'm not sure if that's his name, but like Bias's apprentice, like he meets her and says that like he wants to make some negotiation with her, and something's up for sure. And then Orso is actually the heir to the throne, so he is Jazel's son, and he is kind of a mess, and he doesn't really have much of an interest in, you know, being a future king. And his mother like really wants him to marry because he's like supposedly very old, aka 27, aka that's exactly my age, and he like doesn't want to marry any of the women that his mother introduces, or like not introduces, but like the women that she shows him. And he wants to actually maybe marry Savine, which is a problem because they are half siblings, which they don't know about, and I'm not sure his mother knows. Actually, I don't think she does. Probably not. Honestly, I have no idea, but they are half siblings. Like, Savine is Jazel's daughter. So that is definitely an issue, especially because then we see that they are sleeping together. So there's that's happening. And then he hears that there is like this whole war starting in the north again, and he wants to do something about it. He wants to fight, but basically the crown is in a lot of debt, and they don't have the money or the people to send to the north. And so he talks to his father, the king, and he said that like he will give him some people, but like very few, and then the rest he needs to get himself. And he talks to a bunch of people, and no one wants to give him either like the people or the money for it, until he's like talking to one of his friends and he's like, you need to talk to someone who will see this as a gamble, and like maybe a gamble or an investment. And so he decides to talk to Savine because one of the people that he talked to before was Glokta, and he told him that like his daughter was into like investments and stuff, whatever. And so he goes to talk to Savine, and at first she's like, I cannot give him the money because he's not reliable whatsoever. But then she ends up saying that she will give him the money because she realizes that she's in love with him, which again is a problem because they are half siblings. And I think that is pretty much where we are with all of these characters. And like, I'm really, really liking this. I am having such a good time being back in this world and like meeting new characters, but also seeing some of the old characters, because we see Jazel, we see Glokta, we see a few others. And I'm really, really liking it. And it's also really interesting how some chapters kind of like mirror each other because different characters are like talking about the same things, doing the same things, like in different ways, but like they really mirror each other. And also I really like how everything, like all of the POVs are like connected to each other by either like bigger or smaller threads, but like everything is connected to everything, and I love that. And the humor in this book is still great, and it's also very violent, and yeah, I'm having a great time with this. I'm loving it. I'm really, really having a good time. Like I said, I'm loving to be back in this world. I'm loving to see some familiar characters, and I'm loving to get to know the new characters, and especially like I love Savine, and Orso is interesting. I like him. He's fun to follow for sure. Leo's kind of pissing me off. The others are not as connected to. I feel like these are the... Oh, Reik, I also really like Reik, and she's very interesting because of the whole long eye. The others I'm like less connected to or interested in, but still, overall, I'm really, 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 really liking this. So yeah, I'm going to keep reading. I'm going to read part 2, and I will be back. Okay, so I have read part 2. I'm on page 316, and I'm once again gonna divide my summary of things that happened in like groups of characters. And so first with Broad, he is like in a factory, and there is like an accident where a boy actually dies because of like bad conditions. And so he is convinced to go to a meeting of the Breakers, and in there he meets Vic, and they also meet supposedly the Weaver, who's like the leader of the Breakers, who seems to be a superior of the Inquisition. He's called Rizinow or something like that. But later in the conversation with Vic, actually turns out, like he says that he's actually not the Weaver. He's just like borrowing that name from someone more important or something like that. So he's actually not the Weaver. He's just pretending to the other Breakers to be the Weaver. So there's that. But yeah, there's that meeting. They are preparing a mutiny, an uprising. And then we follow Savine, and she is going to visit one of her factories because the profit that it's getting is like suspicious to her, so she wants to see what the hell is happening. And so she's actually at like that factory when the uprising starts in the fighting, and she gets like caught up in the middle of all that, and she has to run, and she's like being chased. And like I was on the edge of my seat when I was reading that. And also like before that, when she's in the factory, like she's seeing all of like the terrible conditions that the workers have, and how they are like working way too much, not earning nearly enough, and just like truly having terrible working conditions. And she's like, that seems terrible, however, profits. And so she's that kind of person. And do I take back that I'm in love with her? Like, yes, but also I've never not had a crush on a female villain, ever. So I guess it actually does make sense. But anyway, she's running. I was on the edge of my seat. I was stressed. And then she's actually found and taken in by Broad's family. And neither he or his wife know who she is, but their daughter actually knows that she is like Savine, the daughter of Arch-Lector, I think that's the title, Glokta. And so she basically makes a deal with Savine to basically, like, she will keep her identity a secret, and after all of this is sort of over and people are in trouble with the Inquisition, she will protect, like, her family because they are now protecting her, and Savine does think that that seems like a fair deal, and so they make that deal. And then with Orso, things actually connect here because he has gathered like his army to go to the north, and they are like about to leave when he is called by his father, the king, and also Glokta. And they are both wanting to talk to him because they have learned about the uprising that has happened, like in that other town. And so like Orso's army is the only available army that they have because everyone else is in either like Styria or the north or wherever. So that's like the only people that they have available. And so they want him to go there to that place where the uprising happened to basically prevent it from becoming an actual like revolution. And he at first doesn't want to go, but then he hears that Savine is actually there and she was caught up in it and they don't even know if she's alive, if she's safe. And so he agrees and he gets there, and like at the very end we see him like getting there with his people, and he basically wants to talk to someone who might be somewhat in charge of the Breakers to try to make a deal. And then with the other characters who are Leo and Rika. I googled how to say her name and it said that it was Rika. Could Google be lying to me? Yes, but that is what it said. And so she is reunited with her father, the Dogman, and like his people. And she also has like another vision. And she says, I saw a bald weaver with a purse that never emptied. So I'm assuming that's the weaver of the Breakers. And I don't know who that is, but I know that it has to be an important character for sure. And then I saw an old woman whose head was stitched together with golden wire. And finally she says, I saw a lion, who's Leo, and a wolf, who is Stour, fight in a circle of blood. They fought tooth and claw, and the wolf had the best of it. The wolf had the best of it, but the lion was the winner. So that's the vision that she had. And then they are planning like their battle against the like Northmen, like Stour and his people. And they are like at first waiting for Orso and his army because they heard that he was coming, but then they learned that he will not be coming, which kind of ruins their plans, but also like the Northmen are coming, so they have to fight. And the plan is to have like Orso's mother's people like fights there, like Stour's people, and then Dogman and his people are gonna like come in and help. And Leo like really wants to fight, have his moment of glory, but his mother tells him that he is very like rash and he doesn't think things through and he would just get himself killed basically. So she wants him to stay back with the reserves just in case they need other people to fight. And he really doesn't want that. He really wants to go like into the battlefield and like have his moment of glory. So he's really angry about that decision, but he ends up agreeing to go with the reserves. And they start fighting, and then the Dogman and these people, they are about to go into their position. But Rika has another vision and she sees some people coming like out of the woods, people with the sigil of Black Calder. And so they decide, like the Dogman decides to like send some scouts to see if that is actually a thing that is gonna happen. And it turns out that it is. And so Black Calder, who was not supposed to be there yet at all, they are also coming to attack from like another side. So the Dogman and his people cannot join the others in the other fights. And they fight there with Black Calder, and then Leo is actually called because they will need the reserves since the Dogman and his people cannot help. And he goes into the battlefield and he's fighting. And we actually see a lot of perspectives from this fight, which is very chaotic. And also during like the other attack, like the uprising at the factories, the mills, we also saw like a lot of different perspectives of people like attacking, of people being attacked, like the whole chaos. And I love that in the books and the series. They always, when there is like this sort of fight happening, the author always does that, and I love that. And so yeah, we're also seeing very different perspectives. And Leo specifically, he sees that, you know, maybe the fight is not as Glory is as he expected. He's struggling. He's just seeing a lot of death everywhere. And then he gets to where Stour is. And Stour tells him that they will decide this, like not in this battle, but the two of them in the circle. And Leo agrees because he really just wants to fight Stour, and so he agrees that they will decide this in the circle. And he remembers Rika's vision where she said that like the lion and the wolf will fight each other in a circle of blood or something, and like the wolf will get the better of it, but the lion will win or something like that. So he's very convinced that he will win, and that is why he agrees to this. And that is where I'm at. And I love this. I am so excited about this book. I am loving it so much. And like I was on the edge of my seat for so many chapters, both like the uprising and also the battle and many things in between. And also there has been a lot of mention of Bayaz. He's I think they said he's like on the west, like solving some things, but like they have talked about him, and I'm wondering if he's going to appear at some point or if he's just going to be mentioned, because I would love him to appear. He is like, I don't love Bayaz as a person, but I love Bayaz as a character. You know what I mean? I feel like that's the truth for a lot of the characters in this series. They are all like amazing characters. They're not amazing people, a lot of them, maybe most of them, but they are all like excellent characters. And I am definitely very excited to see Bayaz and all of the drama that he's probably gonna bring with him. And yeah, like I am loving this. I really don't like Leo. He pisses me off because he just wants to have like his, you know, moments of glory and to be kind of like worshipped and to be in charge, because like his mother is in charge since his father died, and he keeps waiting like every day to get the message from the king to say that he's gonna be in charge. And I'm just like, bro, you would be terrible at it. Your mother is actually a really good leader. Like everyone else recognizes it. The Dogman said that like she's one of the best leaders of armies that he's ever seen. Like everyone says that, but Leo, you know, he's sure that like he will be the leader, you know, and he's pissing me off. Orso is just, he's a kind of an idiot, but he's okay, I guess. And Savine, also not a good person, but a great character. And yeah, I'm really, really enjoying it. I don't know if you can tell that I'm very excited about this, but I'm very excited about this. So yeah, I'm going to finish it. Probably gonna be very crazy, and I am very excited. I cannot wait. And yeah, I'm gonna finish it and I'll be back. Okay, so I have finished the book, and it starts off pretty much like this third part where we left off. And so Orso has a meeting with the Breakers, and Vic is there in that meeting, and she like basically gives him a note saying that like what he should do in that meeting, and that is basically to try to make a deal with the Breakers and like promise them that they will be pardoned, and in exchange they will just like surrender. And that does seem like a good course of action to Orso, because that is just like dealing with the situation peacefully, and so he does that. And then Savine actually talks to Orso, like she gets to him, and he's like super happy to see her, super happy to see that she's well, and he like proposes to her, and she doesn't say yes right away, but she's definitely thinking of accepting his proposal. And then like on the next day or something, he like Orso is super happy with himself because he was able to basically like, you know, stop this uprising in peace. No one was hurt. Like after he got there, like, everything is fine until he sees that like the 200 people who like the 200 rebels that were caught, they were all actually executed, and now they're just being hanged like on display. And he's like, what the hell happened? I just promised all these people that they would be pardoned, and they were killed. And apparently, like, it was up to the Inquisition and the king. But basically, the Inquisition, like, Jazel is just a puppet. So, you know, the Inquisition just wanted to kill them, and whatever Orso promised, had no meaning, so they just killed all of those people, and now he's feeling like super bad. And then they get back home, and Savine is telling her mom that she's like, the prince proposed to her, and she's like, you cannot marry him because he is your brother. And I was like, thank you for finally saying that. And yeah, she tells her that she's actually Jazel's daughter, and she obviously cannot marry her brother, and she's like freaking out. And then she just sends a note to Orso saying that my answer is no, like, I'm not gonna marry you, and like, don't come after me ever again. And now he's not only like feeling super bad because all of those people who he promised a pardon were killed, but also like the woman that he's in love with actually doesn't want to marry him. So he's going through it for sure. Oh, and just one more thing with Savine. She actually takes Broad and like all his family, like she does, keep her word. She does like protect them. She takes them to work for her basically. And so now like the daughter is going to be working for her. The mother is going to be like, I think, sewing like her dresses or something. And Broad himself is basically gonna be her muscle for her business deals. And we see him basically like intimidating and kind of like hitting someone that have sort of crossed Savine in a business deal. So that's what's happening. And then like in the north, we see that both Leo and Stour are like preparing for their duel in the circle, and Leo actually gets the letter from the king saying that he will indeed be like Lord Governor after his father, so his mother is no longer in charge because he has received that letter. And that, to me, honestly sounds like a terrible course of action. But yeah, they're like trying to choose like whatever weapons they will take to the circle, because they are going to choose the weapons, but it's not necessarily what they will fight with. Like they might have to exchange weapons, so you have to think like that it's a weapon that you can use well, but also a weapon that your opponent cannot use very well. So like they're both trying to decide that. But then when they get to the circle, they like, it's decided that they will fight with what they brought. And so they start fighting, and clearly Stour is a much better fighter. He is like kicking Leo's ass, and Leo is like about to lose. But like honestly, Stour could have killed him many times, but he wanted to just like show off. And then like Rika, she has a vision about like Stour's weapon, and she knows like where it will be. So she shouts for Leo to like get down or something, and he does. And with that, he's actually able to win the duel. And he wins. He could have killed Stour, but he decides to, be merciful and let him keep his life. And then after the duel, like when they are recovering, Leo goes to talk to Stour, and basically he wants to make a deal with him, and he wants them to like be friends. And Stour does agree, but like I don't trust Stour for a single second. So there is that. And Rika is also like pissed about that, because Stour was gonna like, torture her and kill her and all of those things that he said he would do to her. And she was expecting Leo to kill him, and he didn't. So she's also pissed at that. And she also does not trust that Stour will keep his word. And then Leo is actually invited to the capital for like a parade to celebrate his victories in the north. And Dogman wants Rika to go with him to be there representing like the Northmen that are part of the Union. And so everyone now, almost everyone, is like gathered at the capital. And there is like that party before the parade to celebrate the victories, both like Leo's victory at the north and then Orso's sort of victory with the uprising. And actually we have Savine and Rika meeting, and that was actually so like cute and wholesome and something I did not expect. And like they exchanged necklaces, and I was like, this is the cutest thing I've ever seen. And like I really love the girls interacting. And then we have Savine meeting Leo and Rika meeting Orso. So they're like switching up the pairs. And like Savine and Leo are definitely a duo, but Orso and Rika like actually really like their interactions. And Orso is like still feeling really, really terrible about everything, but he's actually like super nice to Rika, and she's like, I did not expect you to actually be kind. And then she's nice to him, and he's like, how can anybody, like literally anybody in the world, how can anybody like me? I am terrible. I am a piece of shit. Like, how can she be interested in me? And I was like, that poor baby. So yeah, I actually really like to see them together. And then also Bias, he appears, which was definitely very fun to see him. I don't like him. as a person, but he's a very interesting character. And he also appears at the party. He's there like talking to everyone, talking to the king. And then there is like the parade, and people are really pissed at Orso because they think that he was the one responsible for those 200 people being killed, and they have started calling him Young Lamb. And then I remembered like Rika's first vision, or one of her first visions, and I remember that there was something about a lamb. Like there was something about a lion, who is Leo. There was something about a wolf, who's Stour. And there was something about a lamb, and I did not know who the lamb was, but now I know. And then I went to like look it up, what she actually said. And she said, I saw a wolf eat the sun, so like Stour. And then the lion ate the wolf, so Leo winning, I guess. And then a lamb ate the lion, so like Orso is gonna beat Leo with something, which I am very happy about. By the way, Leo pisses me off. And then an owl ate the lamb, and I don't know who the owl is. I don't know if I'm supposed to know when I didn't figure it out, or if I'm not supposed to know yet, but I definitely don't know who the owl is. Owl is gonna eat the lamb, and that I'm not very happy with. But yeah, they're there at the parade, and then Rika actually has another vision. And she says, I saw a white horse prancing at the top of a broken tower. I saw a great door open, but on the other side there was only an empty room. I saw an old chieftain dead. An old chieftain dead in a high hall lit with candles. Men gathered about the body, looking down, all of them wondering what they could get from it, like they were dogs, and that dead old man was the meat. And so she's actually pretty sure that the old chieftain that she saw dying is gonna be her father. So she wants to go back to the north, to go back home, to try to, help or prevent with that. But then we actually see what's happening in the north, not with Dogman, but with Stour. And so he is with his uncle, who's the king of the Northmen. And he is saying that, also with Clover and Wonderful and some other people. And he's saying that, almost dying gave him perspective. And that he basically, if he wants something, he needs to go get it. And he can't just wait for it to, fall in his lap. So he just kills his uncle. So he'll be the king now because he is like his uncle's heir. So he just kills his uncle and then tells Clover that if he wants, like he would like to have him by his side, but to prove his loyalty, he has to kill Wonderful. And he kills Wonderful, and I was like, what the fuck is happening? And then like his father, Stour's father, gets there and he's like, what the fuck have you done? But also he can't just like kill his son for having killed his brother, you know what I mean? So there's that, but like now Stour is the king of the Northmen, which does not seem like a good thing. Not that like his uncle was good, but you know what I mean? And then at the last chapter we have Orso, and he's like woken up in the middle of the night by his mother, and he's like taken to a room where his father is dead, and everyone's like, how could this happen? The king, like, he was super healthy, he was fine, how could he just die out of nowhere? And then Bias obviously is there and like places a hand on Orso's shoulder and is like, long live the king. So like I'm sure he had something to do with that because he just needs a new puppet to control. And that's how the book ended. And now like the three boys are in charge. So Leo is in charge, like he's the Lord Governor. And now Orso is gonna be the king. And Stour is the king of the Northmen. So yeah, the three boys are in charge. And that is the end. And let's go into my final thoughts. And so starting off with the characters. And we were introduced to a lot of characters, which I really liked. But we also got to see some known and familiar characters, which I also really liked. And I guess we can start with Savine, and she continues to be an icon, and I continue to definitely be in love with her. Although I think now there is a character that I am falling more in love with than Savine. And it was definitely interesting, like, to see how her experiences in the uprising, like what she went through, like how it changed her, like, the trauma that she went through, like how that changed her, but at the same time, how it didn't change her at all. And yeah, I'm very interested to see how, like, where her story goes. And then Rika, she's like the one that I say that I'm maybe falling more in love with than with Savine, because she's also an icon, but her more like funny and casual personality, like I am definitely liking her more and more as the book progresses. And also like the whole thing with the long eye, like that is so interesting, and like all her visions and all her, I guess, prophecies are also interesting, like trying to figure them out. And yeah, I actually like to see her with Orso. They were definitely an interesting match. I don't know if that's gonna go anywhere, but it was definitely fun at the moment. And yeah, I really, really like her, and I'm also very interested to see where her story goes. And then with Orso, like, he really, really grew on me. Like in the beginning, I thought he was just like an idiot and I didn't care about him. And now he's still an idiot, but I actually care about him. Like he really grew on me. I really like him, and I really feel bad about him because he just feels like so shitty about himself, and he just feels like so guilty about what happened to those people, and he just feels like he is a like terrible person, like he has no worth. And I just feel really bad for him. And now I know that, you know, as the king, he's just gonna be another puppet, like just like his father was. And yeah, I just feel really bad for him. I want to like give him a hug. And yeah, he really, really, really grew on me. And on the other hand, Leo, he really pisses me off. I really don't like him. All of his attitude of being like, I know better than everyone, I'm stronger than everyone, and I will know how to fix this better than anyone else really pisses me off. And I'm definitely not liking to see him in charge. But here we are. And yeah, he did not grow on me. He honestly continued to piss me off more and more as the book progressed. But he's definitely a great character, and like all of the characters are great because there's not a single character that I feel like neutral about. I definitely have, you know, feelings about all of the characters. So they're all like excellent characters. And it was also very nice to see like the familiar characters that we knew before, like Jazel and the Dogman, but especially we spent a little more time with Glokta, who's also definitely not a great person, but a fantastic character. And also Bias, who's, again, not a great person, but like such a cool character to follow. And he's still like pulling his strings like everywhere. Because like at some point he was talking to someone, I think it was maybe Rika? I'm not sure actually. He was talking to someone and he's saying that like in his business he had to do whatever. And that person asks, what is your business? And he says, everything. Like, yeah, literally, his business is everything. He is, like, he has eyes and ears everywhere. He's everywhere. He's controlling everything. And he's such an interesting character to be around again. And I also love to see all of the mentions to, like, Logan and everybody, like, saying at some time, like, you have to be realistic. And, like, yeah, I miss Logan, who, again, was not a perfect person, but he was such a fantastic character. And yeah, I love, like, all of the characters. Some of them I hate, some of them I love, but you know, as characters, I love all of them. And I also love the plot. Like I was hooked from beginning to end of this book, and the pacing was also perfect because there was not a single moment where I was not like absolutely obsessed with what was happening. And it was definitely interesting to see how obviously like familiar the world is because you know, it is the same world and the characters are still, some of them are still the same, they're still there. But at the same time, it was so different because not only are we also following new characters, the world itself is changing. And yeah, it was definitely interesting to see that. And the action scenes were amazing. There were so many times I was like on the edge of my seat, like reading this. And also like the blend of humor and like brutal, gory scenes was also like the perfect mix for me. And yeah, like I have a 5-star feeling of this book for almost the entirety of the book, but I didn't want to say it because I didn't want to jinx it. But I definitely loved everything about this. Like I had such a fantastic time with this book, and it is definitely 5 stars. And so yeah, that is, you know, a great start to this trilogy, and I am very excited to read the next 2 books, and I hope they are gonna be as amazing as this one was. I loved being back in this world. I love being back with these characters. I love meeting the new characters. I loved, you know, seeing all of these conflicts and this web of people controlling others. Like fantastic, amazing. I loved it. Definitely 5 stars. And yeah, that is everything for this video. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you have enjoyed it. And if you did, give it a like and subscribe. And I will talk to you next time. Bye!